The people who hide their pain the best are often the ones suffering the most. Think about the friend who's always cheerful, the coworker who never complains, the family member who insists they're fine even when their world is falling apart. You know these people. You might be one of these people. A study from Stanford in 1993 discovered something unsettling. When researchers asked people to hide their emotions while watching distressing films, something unexpected happened. On the outside, they looked calm, composed, in control. But inside, their bodies were in chaos, heart rate spiked, stress hormones flooded their systems. The suppression wasn't protecting them, it was destroying them from the inside out. And the most devastating part? The pain they're hiding doesn't disappear, it metastasizes. It transforms into chronic fatigue, unexplained illness, fractured relationships, and a loneliness so profound that even surrounded by others, they feel completely alone. This is the psychology of people who hide their pain. And by the end of this video, you'll understand not just why they do it, but what it's really costing them. The conditioning. It starts early, much earlier than most people realize. Picture a 7-year-old boy who scrapes his knee on the playground. Before the tears can fall, his father says, "Big boys don't cry, shake it off." Or a 10-year-old girl excitedly telling her mother about winning the spelling bee, only to hear, "Don't brag, honey, nobody likes a show-off." These moments seem small, insignificant, but they're the blueprint. Children are phenomenal emotional detectives. A 2018 study from Washington State University found that when parents suppress their stress during interactions with their kids, the children immediately sense something's wrong. Even when the parent acts normal, even when they smile and say the right words, the kids know. And what's worse, they become less responsive, less engaged. They're learning, in real time, that emotions are dangerous territory. This is how the conditioning happens. Not through one traumatic moment, but through 1,000 tiny lessons about what's acceptable and what's not. Don't be too loud. Don't take up too much space. Don't burden others with your problems. Stop being so sensitive. For some, the lesson comes wrapped in survival. Research on childhood trauma shows that kids raised in violent or unpredictable environments learn to suppress emotions as a protective mechanism. Showing vulnerability when you're not safe isn't wise. It's dangerous. The class clown who deflects with jokes, the perfectionist who never asks for help, these aren't personality traits. They're armor forged in childhood. But there's also something deeper at play, something evolutionary. Humans are pack animals. We need the group to survive. And the group needs cooperation, harmony, cohesion. A 1997 study by James Gross at Stanford demonstrated that emotional suppression serves a social function. When we hide our pain, we're attempting to signal that we're not a burden, that we're still valuable members of the tribe. We're trading our internal experience for external acceptance. The culture amplifies this, especially in societies that worship productivity and strength, especially for men taught that vulnerability equals weakness, especially for women taught that their worth lies in caring for others, never themselves. The message is clear. Your pain is your problem. Handle it quietly, privately, alone. And so they do. They learn to perform normalcy so convincingly that even they start to believe it. The performance. The performance becomes second nature, automatic, invisible even to the person wearing the mask. Watch someone who hides their pain and you'll notice patterns. They're the ones who arrive early to help set up and stay late to clean. The friend who's always available for your crisis, but never seems to have one of their own. They ask how you're doing with genuine interest, but when you turn the question back, "I'm good, busy, but good," every single time. This is overfunctioning, the compulsive need to be useful, because if you're useful, you're valuable. And if you're valuable, you won't be abandoned. A 2009 study on expressive suppression found that people who habitually hide emotions report significantly lower social support and less closeness to others. The very strategy they're using to maintain connection is severing it. Then there's the humor. Not the light, playful kind, the deflective kind, the person who turns every serious conversation into a joke. You try to check in on them, and they hit you with a one-liner so quick, so practiced, that before you know it, you're laughing, and the moment passes. Comedians talk about this. The darkness behind the comedy, using laughter as a shield instead of self-expression. It's not that they're funny, it's that funny is the only safe way to exist. Perfectionism is another mask. The immaculate house, the flawless work presentation, the body that never rests. From the outside, it looks like excellence. From the inside, it's control. Because if everything is perfect, if there are no cracks in the facade, then no one will look close enough to see what's underneath. A colleague once told me about a woman who kept her apartment so pristine that friends felt uncomfortable visiting. What they didn't know? She'd grown up in chaos. The cleanliness wasn't about aesthetics. It was about creating the stability she never had. And then there's the withdrawal disguised as independence. I'm fine on my own. I don't need help. It sounds like strength. It's actually isolation wearing a brave face. These are the people who cancel plans when they're struggling, who disappear during their hardest moments, who resurface weeks later acting like nothing happened. They're not trying to hurt you by pulling away. They're trying to protect you from their pain. You ask them how they're really doing, and you get the same scripted responses. Just tired. Work's been crazy. It's nothing, really. They've become so practiced at minimizing their experience that they barely register it themselves anymore. The pain becomes background noise, white static they've learned to ignore. But the body doesn't ignore it. The body never ignores it. Chronic headaches, digestive issues, insomnia that no amount of sleep hygiene fixes. They go to doctors who find nothing wrong, who suggest it might be stress, and they nod politely while thinking, but I'm not even that stressed. Because when you've been suppressing for so long, you lose the ability to recognize what stress feels like. You just know you're tired. Always tired. Bone deep, soul-crushing tired. The performance is exhausting. But stopping feels impossible. Because if they let the mask slip, if they show even a crack of what's really happening inside, what then? The internal split. What happens inside is a war most people never see. There's a psychological term for this, emotional dissonance, the gap between what you feel and what you express. And that gap, it takes energy to maintain, enormous energy. Every smile you force when you're breaking, every I'm fine when you're drowning. Every moment you swallow words that need to be said. It's like holding a beach ball underwater. It takes constant effort. And the longer you hold it down, the more exhausted you become. That Stanford study from 1993 revealed something most people don't realize. When participants suppressed their emotions, their cardiovascular systems went haywire. Blood pressure increased. Sympathetic nervous system activation spiked. Their bodies were screaming even as their faces stayed calm. The suppression created a physiological storm that the person couldn't see, but absolutely felt. And this isn't just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. A 12-year study published in 2013 tracked over 800 people and found that those who regularly suppressed emotions had significantly higher mortality rates. Think about that. Hiding your pain doesn't just make you miserable, it can literally shorten your life. The chronic stress of suppression weakens immune function, elevates cortisol, increases inflammation. The body keeps the score even when the mind pretends everything's fine, but the physical toll is only part of it. There's a deeper fracture that happens, a split between the self you show the world and the self you actually are. Psychologists call this incongruence. Carl Rogers, one of the founders of humanistic psychology, believed this disconnect was the root of psychological distress. When who you are and who you present don't align, you start to lose touch with your authentic self. You become a stranger to your own experience. People who hide their pain often describe feeling numb. Not sad, not angry, just nothing. Emotional anesthesia. Because when you suppress specific emotions for long enough, you don't get to choose which ones go numb. Joy dampens, excitement flattens, love feels muted. You wanted to avoid the lows, but you accidentally killed the highs too. You're not protecting yourself from pain, you're severing your connection to being alive. And there's this cruel irony. The more you suppress, the more the emotions intensify when you're alone. You hold it together all day, then collapse at night. Crying in the shower, staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., chest tight, wondering why you feel so empty. The emotions don't disappear. They go underground. They wait. And when the performance finally ends, when you're alone in the dark, they flood back with a vengeance. Some people describe it as living in a glass box. You can see other people. They can see you. But there's this invisible barrier. You watch people connect, laugh, share vulnerable moments, and you think, I don't know how to do that anymore. The suppression that was supposed to protect you has become a prison. Research from the University of Oregon tracked college students through a major life transition and found something heartbreaking. Students who habitually suppressed emotions reported feeling less close to others, had fewer meaningful friendships, and experienced lower social satisfaction. The people around them had no idea they were struggling. They seemed fine, competent, together. But inside, they were drowning in loneliness. Because here's the brutal truth. You cannot selectively numb. You cannot hide your pain without also hiding your joy. You cannot protect others from your darkness without also depriving them of your light. The suppression that feels like self-sacrifice is actually self-abandonment. And the person suffering the most, they often don't even recognize it, because when you've been performing for so long, when the mask has been on for years, you forget there's a face underneath. The loneliness paradox, the cruelest part, isn't the pain itself. It's the isolation that comes with hiding it. You can be surrounded by people and feel utterly alone. You can have a full social calendar, a loving partner, a family that cares, and still feel like no one actually knows you. Because they don't. They know the version you've shown them. The edited highlight reel, the carefully curated performance. But the real you, the one who's struggling, that person is invisible. And you did this on purpose. You chose this isolation to protect them, to not be a burden, to maintain the illusion that you're okay. But what you didn't realize is that in protecting them from your pain, you also denied them the chance to love you fully, to know you completely, to show up for you the way you constantly show up for them. That 2009 Stanford study on emotional suppression revealed something devastating. When people habitually hide their emotions during social interactions, their conversation partners feel it. They can't name what's wrong, but they sense the disconnect. They rate the interaction as less satisfying. They feel less connected. Some even describe feeling threatened or confused by the person's emotional absence. The suppression you thought was keeping relationships intact is actually corroding them. Friends stop reaching out because every time they ask how you are, you say you're fine. They're not abandoning you. They're respecting what they think is a boundary. They don't know you're screaming on the inside. They see someone who seems to have it all together, someone who doesn't need them. Partners grow distant because intimacy requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires truth. You can share a bed, a home, a life with someone, and still be strangers if you're not sharing your inner world. They sense something's off, but can't pinpoint it. You never let me in, they say, and you think, I'm protecting you. But protection feels like rejection from the other side. There's research from 2014 that examined couples during conflict. When one partner suppressed emotions during difficult conversations, both people showed elevated stress responses. The suppression didn't create peace. It created tension neither person could name. The unspoken becomes the unbearable. And the tragedy? The people who hide pain are often the most empathetic, the most attuned to others' needs. They can read a room, sense when someone's off, offer comfort with perfect precision, but they cannot receive what they so freely give. They've built a one-way street where care flows outward, but never inward. You become the person everyone leans on, but no one thinks to check on. The strong one, the reliable one, the one who's always okay, and that identity becomes a trap. Because the moment you're not okay, you don't know how to say it. You've spent so long being the helper that you've forgotten how to ask for help. So you sit in rooms full of people, smiling and nodding and performing connection, while feeling like you're watching life through glass, present but not there, seen but not known. The loneliness isn't about being alone, It's about being unseen while standing in plain sight. Witnessing without saving. So what do you do when you recognize this pattern? In someone you love, in yourself? The instinct is to fix it, to pull the person out of their isolation, to force them to open up, to convince them they're not a burden. But that rarely works, because people who hide their pain have spent years building those walls. They're not going to dismantle them because you asked nicely. Witnessing is different than saving. Witnessing is presence without agenda. It's sitting with someone in their pain without trying to make it go away, without offering solutions they didn't ask for. Without saying, you just need to, or have you tried? Witnessing is simply being there, consistently, patiently, without expectation. A colleague who studied grief once told me something that stuck. She said the most healing thing someone can offer isn't advice or optimism or distraction. It's the willingness to sit in the darkness with you, to not flinch, to not rush you toward the light, to say, through presence alone, your pain doesn't scare me away. For someone who's been hiding for years, that's revolutionary. But you have to understand the pattern first. The deflection, the minimizing, the I'm fine on repeat. Don't take it at face value. If someone always says they're okay, they're probably not. If they never ask for help, they probably need it. If they're always there for everyone else but never accept support themselves, that's the pattern, and the approach matters. We need to talk about your issues, we'll send them running. But I'm here if you ever want to talk. Create space without pressure. You seem like you're going through something is better than what's wrong, because the second question has a right answer. The first is just observation, without judgment, without demand. Sometimes it's not about words at all. It's showing up, consistently, not just when it's convenient, not just when they reach out because they won't reach out. It's texting just to say you're thinking of them, inviting them to things even when they always say no, sitting in comfortable silence when they can't find words, proving, through action, that your presence isn't conditional on their performance. But what if you're the one hiding? Recognition is the first step, and it's harder than it sounds. Because you've been performing so long, you might not even realize you're doing it. Ask yourself, when was the last time you told someone how you really feel? Not the sanitized version, the actual truth. When was the last time you cried in front of another person? Asked for help without apologizing? Let someone see you struggling without immediately reassuring them you're fine? If you can't remember, that's your answer. The path out isn't dramatic. It's not one big vulnerable conversation that fixes everything. It's small. It's telling one person, actually I'm not doing great. It's letting the tears fall instead of swallowing them. It's saying, I could use some support without following it with, but only if you have time. Therapy helps, not because therapists have magic answers, but because they're trained to sit with pain without needing to fix it. They create space for the parts of you that have been exiled. The scared parts, the angry parts, the parts you've deemed unacceptable, they witness you, fully. And in that witnessing, something shifts. But even outside therapy, healing happens in connection, in letting someone see you, really see you, not the polished version, the messy, complicated, struggling version, and discovering they don't leave, they don't judge, they don't make it about them, they just stay. That's when you realize the thing you've been most afraid of, being too much, being a burden, being rejected for your pain, was never the truth. The truth is that authentic connection requires authenticity, and you can't be known if you're never seen. You can't be loved for who you are if you only show who you think you should be. The mask protected you once. Maybe it even saved you. But at some point, protection becomes prison. At some point, the thing that kept you safe starts keeping you stuck. You don't have to take it off all at once. Just loosen it. Let one person in, then maybe another. Not because you owe anyone your pain, but because you deserve to be known. You deserve connection that goes deeper than performance. You deserve to rest. So maybe take a moment after this video and ask yourself, who am I performing for? What would happen if I let just one person see what's really happening inside? Not everyone. Not the whole world. just one. And if you recognize someone in your life who fits this pattern, someone who's always fine, always strong, always there for everyone else, maybe check in, not with big questions they'll deflect, just presence, just showing up, just letting them know quietly that you see them. If this resonated, I'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts below, whether you're the person hiding or the person trying to reach someone who is. And if you want more psychology that cuts deeper than surface level, you know what to do. You don't have to carry everything alone. You really don't.